For my third video discussion today, I'm going to be responding to the first prompt on yellow journalism. So the concept of yellow journalism was kind of born from this competition between Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst. So they were creating very sensationalized news, both in terms of the content, so it might have been very gossip related, or they're doing things that were really for kind of the average person, creating stories for the average person. But they also changed just the style of what newspapers looked like at the time. So instead of maybe just black and white and text, they included illustrations, and it's colorful, had these big headlines going across the top of the page. So they were trying to get people interested in buying their paper, picking their paper, and they were aggressive in how they were seeking out information to put for content in their papers. So yes, there was a big competition between the two. It even turned into Hearst stealing staff from Pulitzer's paper, which is really kind of a part of how they got the title of yellow journalism, because Pulitzer had an illustration of a boy wearing yellow, and whenever Hearst stole that illustrator from him, he was also using the Yellow Kid cartoon in his paper as well. So the title of yellow journalism was inspired by the Yellow Kid, and I think that it really, just that illustration and kind of the story behind it, really gives a good idea of what was going on, this competition between these two men, and that they were fighting over staff, trying to have very bright, colorful kinds of content in their paper. So I think that it was the right title for what was happening at the time. So some of the other traits of yellow journalism include things like they had to use anonymous sources, so they might not always use their source, which makes it questionable where their facts came from, where the information came from. They also might have used some self promotion in it, and they also had kind of this activist mentality, where they were trying to do campaigns, things that people were interested in, maybe had to do with taxes, or there was when Nellie Bly went and did her investigative journalism into an asylum, so things that people were really interested in and that would affect them. So those are some of the traits, and I definitely think we see these characteristics today. Of course, tabloids, tabloid newspapers, I usually see them, maybe they post they had an anonymous source, or a source told us this, usually related to, I feel like, celebrity gossip. Or you see, like when you're at the grocery store looking at the tabloids, they have just huge print, and they have kind of doctored photos, or bad, usually paparazzi pictures of people, and they kind of put them together to make this mashup that's supposed to tell a story, right? And it makes you want to look inside and see, is that true? What is going on? And well, our book, on page 242, there's a quote in here from T.T. Williams, who was Hearst's business manager, and he wrote, "Sensationalism is largely a matter of type, of headlines, display, and illustrations." So I do think of tabloids when I think of sensationalism, and how you're making something look sensational. It also reminds me of clickbait a little bit, where you're creating this headline that's like, don't you want to check this out? You won't believe what happened. This will shock you. And some sort of picture that you're like, wait, what happened next, right? So I think of clickbait articles as another example, or you can see these kinds of yellow journalism traits in clickbait type of news or articles. It also kind of reminds me of the Covington High School situation a little bit. I can see some characteristics of yellow journalism in what happened there, because there was definitely a lack of facts, right? There was just a picture posted on the internet with a headline. It went viral. News stations picked it up and they were talking about it since it was something that was very popular. And so you can see where, maybe they didn't have all the information or hadn't interviewed every party that was involved with what happened or all the witnesses. There was just this one photo that didn't necessarily have anything going on in it when you just looked at it, but you can create a kind of narrative around what was happening, which also reminds me of just during the Spanish-American War situation. There's a quote on page 243 from Hearst saying, "You furnish the pictures and I'll furnish the war." So it reminds me of that a little bit, where they're saying, okay, we have this picture, let's talk about what was happening here. So there's definitely characteristics of yellow journalism still visible today. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.